exceptional resource persons, and you will enjoy their sessions. So as soon as he joins, we will start our program. If you have any issue, any problem, you can contact me. I'm the course coordinator of this program. My name is Dr. Mohammed Shakir. I'm working in the Department of Education, Aligarh Muslim University. You can contact me. But with regard to certificate, you have to contact Rajesh Chauhan. With regard to link, you have to contact our technical person, a very competent person we have, Mr. Mazhar Saab. He will be guiding you. And I think with regard to resource persons, I'm always there for you, especially during the programs. Even suppose if you have any query, anything which you want to ask me, then personally you can send me message. Don't write in the group. So because others will be disturbed in that case. So we are waiting for SK Singh sir. And Mazhar bhai, Mazhar bhai,
जी सर.
sir has come. Sir आ गए?
I cannot see him.
Okay.
एक बार सर कॉल कर लीजिए.
मेरे पास सर का नंबर नहीं है एक्चुअली. है आपके पास? अच्छा उसमें दिया था लिस्ट में शायद, है ना? मैं करता हूँ. सिंह साहब का नंबर है भी नहीं इसमें.
शाकिर सर आ गए.
हाँ सर हैज कम. सर थैंक यू सर. So I was saying sir will be there inshallah. Sir, we have 30 participants right now, sir. With your kind permission. सर ने ज्वाइन कर लिया सर. सर ने ज्वाइन कर लिया सर. अभी बात करता हूँ आपसे. कर लिया. एक सेकंड. Okay. So sir, with your kind permission, can we start, sir? Singh sir. Adab sir. Sir, am I audible, sir? Okay. Sir, we have in this program, this is 20th program of our MTTC, Madan Mohan Malviya Center. And we have already successfully completed 19 programs, and this is the 20th one. And you have been the part of all the programs. You know that in this journey you were there, and it is because of you and other resource persons we are successfully able to complete our programs. And sir, one line about our participants, sir. They are assistant professors, librarian, lecturers, and associate professors working in the different colleges and universities of India. And they are very sincere participants, and they know the etiquettes of online teaching learning. As and when you will ask them, then only they will open their mics. Otherwise, they are on mute mode. And if you will ask them, they can open their cameras also. So they are very sincere participants. Now, participants, we were waiting for a very senior teacher from this country, India. We have with us for this session Professor S.K. Singh sir, who has been the Vice Chancellor of Himwati Nandan Bahuna Garhwal Central University. Sir was the teacher in the Department of Physics of Aligarh Muslim University. Sir has also worked as chairman of the Department of Physics, Aligarh Muslim University. He is a very passionate teacher. In 1990s, In 90s, he used to talk about ICT. What we are seeing, actually, we are witnessing today, he used to talk about at that time in his classrooms. And it has been told to me by his students directly. Sir has visited many countries for academic purposes. You see, not only he is the former vice chancellor of one of the good universities of India, he is always in the search committees of the vice chancellors. He is actually selecting the vice chancellor for the different universities. Now, he has also published a good number of papers in different reputed national international journals, and he has devoted his whole life in laboratories where he is giving lessons to the students. He is learning, and so dedicated and determined teacher that Sajid sir always talks about his personality, his towering personality, and always say that he has not seen such a sincere teacher in his life. Uh, Sir, we are very happy. We are very grateful to you that despite your busy schedule, you have given us time. Always, we are grateful, sir, because in every RNEP's program, you are always there. You give us time, sir. Especially at this time at 4 p.m., it is very difficult time, sir. Very difficult time, especially for allegarians and allegs. So thank you once again, sir. And sir, now you can start, sir, your session, sir. Sir, voice is not coming, sir. Mazhar bhai, if there is any issue, please help.
अब आ रही है?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is coming.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to address to the participants now, and I hope you are able to hear my voice. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this session, I will be talking about the interconnectivity of teaching and research in the context of the Indian higher education system, really in context of the Indian universities and colleges. So our higher education system has many other institutions other than the universities and colleges. And in the last 10 years, many other institutions, by that I mean the institutions which are governed by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Atomic Energy, or Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, purely research organizations. They have also started teaching in their institutions. Earlier, 20 years back, these organizations have many educational institutions associated with them, where there was no teaching, only purely research. But in last few years, they have also started teaching in their institutions, and they have some of their institutions have been given the status of deemed universities, because according to our laws, unless you have a university, a deemed university, you cannot give a degree. Not many of you know that uh, Department of Atomic Research, that is Atomic Energy, which is in Bombay. It is a huge organization, and many institutions are associated with that, and all of the scientists are recruited after post graduation, and there is a lot of research being done, but most of those scientists who were actively associated with research had to apply to Bombay University to get their degree. So they used to get their degree from Bombay University, even though they worked all the time in the atomic energy institutions. Similarly, for other institutions associated with the um, CSIR and Department of Science and Technology, they had a MOU with various universities where they had to follow the university's uh, rules and regulations, and they had to be registered uh, in those institutions. For example, many of the institutions like Forest Research Institute in Dehradun, or even Institute of Petroleum in Dehradun, they were all had MOU with my university in Garhwal, and they used to get PhD degrees from that university. But now things have changed in the last 10 years. Most of those institutions have also started teaching. Uh, and they are allowed to give their own degrees. So in the recent years, the connectivity between teaching and research has been expanded beyond the university system, and has been started in other institutions also. Now, there are many other examples, especially in applied subjects, especially in subjects like engineering or applied chemistry or applied physics or the biological sciences or pharmaceutical sciences. Uh, there are many institutions who have started teaching in their institutions, even though they are purely engaged in research. So this topic, which has been chosen by the organizers for this series of meetings, is very important. But I would like to tell you some more about this, and you probably know by your own experience how important is research in your teaching. Uh, and Unfortunately, it is more important than it deserves. Because you know that when you are interviewed for a job, or when a job selection takes place, either for the colleges, which are recruited mostly by the service commissions, or respected universities, um, Right now, there are no written tests other than NET. But in the interview, when you appear, most of the questions, I would say 75–80% of the questions are asked about your research activities, even though your primary job is teaching. So you're mostly judged on your ability to do research while you are supposed to do teaching. So, as I said, there is more emphasis on research than it should be right from the beginning from your career, right from the beginning when you join the college or the university. Not only that, it remains so for the rest of your academic life also, for your promotions, for your other appraisals in your career. Um, Research is weighted more than your teaching. Of course, in the last few years, the Tyagarajan Committee of University Grants Commission has um, designed a point system where some emphasis or some credibility is also given to your teaching as well as to your other responsibilities in the college or the university. But primarily, still you are judged basically mostly on teaching, on research. So the connection between teaching and research is very, very intricate, very important. But what are the consequences of this? Before I dwell on the present state of affairs, normally I divide my lecture in two parts. The first part I give you, since you may not be familiar with the history of the interconnectivity between teaching and research. So normally, first part I spend on the history of teaching and research in Indian universities, and the second part on why should be there any relation between teaching and research, and if there is any relation between teaching and research, what is the impact of this relationship? Is it positive or it is negative, or it doesn't really matter whether teaching and research are connected in higher educational institutions. So normally I divide my presentation in three parts, roughly divided into three parts. So let me start with the history of interconnectivity between teaching and research. Our universities are our modern universities are based on the model of a university system, which was designed by the East India Company or the British government. Of course, we had a very long history of higher education system, starting from Takshila and Nalanda and other universities many thousand years ago. And you might have a chance to get a glimpse of that when Prime Minister inaugurated the new campus of Nalanda University last month. And if you are active, you might have read in newspapers the history of Nalanda, how it attracted many scholars from all over the world, especially from East, also from Arab countries, and during that time. And before that, the Takshila University, where many of our stalwarts really worked. And there were also components of research in those universities. But our modern universities are not based on that model. Uh, um, most of those models are Nalanda and Takshila, as you probably are aware, are built by Buddhist monasteries or some reminiscent of Vedic period, which is not to be found, which is completely absent in modern universities. or later on when the Islam was prevalent in the Indian country and our country was ruled by Mughals and Muslim rulers, or from the Turks or Afghans. Then the Islamic system of education was started. They also had the higher education system, mainly madrasas. Madrasas were really the colleges. Maktabas was the primary education. Um, but as I said, our universities are really based on the model of the Britishers, which were established first by East India Company and then by British Raj. Uh, in 1857, the East India Company established 4 universities at Calcutta and Chennai, Bombay, and Delhi University, uh, which were supposed to be based on the uh, university system prevalent in Western countries. And by the Western countries, I meant really Europe and England. At that time, there were almost no universities in the United States. In fact, the United States as such did not exist. So mainly by West, I mean really European countries like Italy and Germany and uh, Scandinavian countries, as well as England. As I said, they were supposed to be based on really those university systems. Let me give you an example, like Cambridge or Oxford, because since it was opened by East India Company and British Raj, people at that time, later on, they were given the responsibility, because very soon, British Raj took over the East India Company and they started running the country. So the universities which were opened by the Britishers should have been opened on the model of Cambridge and Oxford, but they were not. What was the model of Cambridge and Oxford at that time? See, there were two schools of thought in running the university in early 19th century, which was evolved into Oxford and Cambridge type of universities. What was that model? Like our old system, or ancient, I should call, like our ancient system, European higher education system was also religion based. Like our universities were mostly based on Vedic ways of learning, or Buddhist ways of learning, or later Islamic ways of learning, where the emphasis of teaching was on really religious studies, jurisprudence, the law, how to behave as a good citizen, how to become a good citizen. So especially only those disciplines were primarily uh, taught in these universities, in these institutions. Of course, there were some aspects of mathematics and astronomy and philosophy, logic, but they were not the dominant subjects. Dominant subjects were based on the religious studies and the law, jurisprudence, because they have to govern the society. The rulers had to govern the public people, so they have to make certain laws, and they needed people who understand those laws. So those were the main source of main subjects of study. So the same model also in the West, where the Christianity dominated. So religious studies was the main thing, which was the subject of higher education. But in the late 18th century, von Humboldt, who was a German scientist, he was a philosopher, scientist, explorer, all sort of in one. He started a system, or he advocated a system where he thought that giving knowledge should not be the only function of a higher education institution. They should also create knowledge. So for creating knowledge, you don't have to be limited to religious studies or to jurisprudence or certain fields. So you have to explore all the fields, really the natural sciences, or what we call in England the liberal sciences. That is what these are called liberal arts subjects. So liberal in sense of the religious. So all these sociology, humanities, these subjects are called liberal arts subjects. So are the science subjects, natural science subjects. In fact, the doctor of philosophy sort of evolved from this concept that you are doing something original, something philosophical in the sense. Otherwise, why should a doctorate degree should be called doctor of philosophy? But it is historically called doctor of philosophy. Normally, it should be called doctor of physics or doctor of English or doctor of whatever subject you are doing doctorate. But they are all the doctorate degrees are called MPhil, PhD, or DPhil sort of thing. So they expanded beyond religious and jurisprudence to natural sciences and to social sciences and to humanities studies. And they focus not only on learning, not only on seeking knowledge, not only on disseminating knowledge to others, what knowledge exists or what knowledge you have acquired to give to all others who have come to the higher educational institution to learn, but also to create knowledge, which means to start research. So it was really in the 19th century, early 19th century, on the model of Humboldt and von Neumann, who was in England. Even though he was a priest, he was against teaching only religions or religious studies, and he propagated the studies in other fields. So the Western model or the model of Cambridge and Oxford, which was based on the models of universities in Italy and Germany. They were the oldest one. Oxford and Cambridge and Paris University came later. So these universities were based on this older model where, apart from religious studies, natural sciences and humanities and social science were also taught. They were not only taught, but research was started. Because I said the aim was not only understand, not only get knowledge, not only disseminate knowledge, but also to create knowledge. So that was the model. But when the East India Company and the Britishers started the university in India, universities of really Calcutta and Bombay and Chennai and Delhi, well, Madras and Delhi, they were not based on that model because their aims were different. They were interested in creating a workforce which will sustain their Raj, they will sustain their rule. So they sort of did not encourage or they did not include any research. They only included teaching, which will create graduates, which will create, in other words, what we now call babus, which will help run the East India Company, run the system, or later on other universities which were started at Lucknow, Allahabad, Lucknow, and other places, even Banaras Hindu University, the Aligarh Muslim University. They were also started on the same model, where emphasis was not really on research, but to create graduates and postgraduates, which will give you employment. And by that employment, we meant at that time that employment provided by the British Raj. So getting a job in British Raj was the main objective of creating these universities, and that is why they created a class which was between Indians and Britishers. This class was 99% Indian 99% British in spirit, because that is the class with the help of which the Britishers ruled India for almost more than 200 years. So their aim was not to do research, not to create. So that was the model with which our universities were started. And of course, it doesn't mean that there was no research being done, because if you have a creative mind, you will also do you will also do some thinking and some research. So research was being done, but it was minimal. It was voluntary. I said there was no research in a sense that there was no institutional support for research in these institutions. And but as I said, there was some voluntary research, and then there are examples, many examples of successful people who did research during those times. But they did research on their own. The people who are in the audience who are familiar with the physics, they know that C.P. Raman uh, started his work in an institution which was run by Indian Association for Cultivation of Science, which was run by a society, not run by the government. Similarly, there were many people in other subjects which were working in private institutions, which were run by either by some um, associations or some organizations, nothing to do with the British government, and they were doing successfully research. So a creative mind will always do some research, but the research was not an integral part of a university system as it is today. So that is what the situation was before independence. Obviously, a lot of things took shape just before independence. Why was that? The reason was World War II, because they always saw that World War II, how it was influenced by the developments done in science and industry. Obviously, the industry is what? Industry is application of science and engineering. Like engineering is what? Application of science, basic sciences. That leads to engineering. Science and engineering together lead to industry. And it was the industry which dominated the World War II. In fact, the German domination before the World War II is mainly because of the industry, industrialization of Europe, of really France and Germany. Germany at that time was really most of Europe except French areas. So it was very important that uh, countries uh, become industrial. And for that industry, you need science and engineering, and for that science and engineering, you need research component. So Britishers has realized that, and of course, just before World War II, Britishers did not think that they would soon leave so soon after the World War. So just after before the World War, they also started thinking about making research as an important part of higher educational institutions. And in fact, if you read the history, the seeds of many institutions like Indian Council of Technical Education or Indian Council of Medical Education or Indian Council of Agricultural Research, uh, even some aspects of atomic energy, were really started before the independence. They were not funded that much, but they were started before the independence. But everything was disrupted because of the World War II, and then because of the transition period in which British were leaving and India became independent. So when India became independent, obviously those things continued, and more emphasis was given to higher education or to education in general. But you see, after the independence, the whole emphasis of higher education and universities and colleges and teaching was changed. Why it was changed? Because the emphasis after the independence was to make education available to all Indians, to all sections of our society. During the British period, the access to education was limited to very select group of societies. It was not open to all. There were not many colleges. There are not many universities. But the aspirations of our people or of our leaders were very high. The first priority of the government of India was to make the country educated, first to make them literate, because literacy rate was very poor. So great expansion in education took place after the independence, but with a different aim and objective. Aim and objective of the expansion in education, expansion in higher education, was inclusion, equity, and access to all sections of society, poor people, the tribal people, economically deprived people, and to every nook and corner of the country. Not only higher education, but also the primary and secondary education. You see, I went to school in 50s, 1950s. I did high school in 1959. So really my school education is from really 50, 52, 54 to 59, 60. So you see, in those days, many people in our village or surrounding, they opened school on their own land. There were teachers who volunteered for whosoever was a graduate, volunteered to teach them without any salary. That was the what we call Josh of teaching, or even the people of educating their children. So while a lot of government schools, colleges were open, a lot of private colleges and universities were open, private colleges and schools were open by public, by putting their own money. A lot of volunteers started teaching free of charge, especially those ones who were well off. People who needed job were promised a job, but there are many people who started teaching free of cost, without taking any money, if they could afford. So what I was trying to say, that at that time, main aim was to get as many people as possible to the schools, to the colleges, and to the universities. In fact, my own experience in Aligarh Muslim University, when I came here in 1973, there were many students from Northeast, many students from Kerala and other parts, because there were no universities there. And our policies in the university was very liberal. We had a special class, some seats reserved for distant states. So a lot of students came from what is now called Manipur and Nagaland and other people. In our classes, many students. But now, 50 years later, there are so many universities open in the Northeast, so many universities open in the other places like Andhra and Maharashtra and other, that now we don't have those students. They get admission there, and they do their higher studies there. So a lot of expansion has taken place. But as I said, the emphasis was not creation of knowledge, was not research. Mainly it was teaching. Not to mention that there was no concern for research, because it was this period that Council of Scientific and Industrial Research was expanded enormously. I think right now there are more than 40 institutions doing research under the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. There are more than 25 institutions doing research under Department of Science and Technology. Similarly, there are many doing research work under Department of Biotechnology, under ISRO, or under Department of Atomic Energy. There are many institutions doing purely research. So a lot of expansion took place in the research activity under the government in the first 10 years of our independence. A lot of things were started. A lot of engineering institutions were started who pioneered in research. In fact, the whole beginning of 7 famous IITs was started in 58, 59. And from there, around that period, within 5 years, between 58 to 64, 65, all these IITs were started, excelled in teaching as well as in research. And since they were started on the modern pattern of Oxford and Cambridge or the US universities, they were a very active component of research. So research and teaching took shape in just after the independence, and there was very intense connection between teaching and research. Of course, at that time, I am not talking about the quality of research. That is a different aspect. We'll come to that later. But I think in large emphasis was given on research during this period. Roughly, I can say the first decade of independence was mainly opening new colleges and new universities so that higher education could be taken to the all parts of the society, to all parts of the country geographically, to accommodate as many students as possible. And then after first 10 years, there was emphasis on the research, but not in the universities because separate institutions, independent institutions were started for the research. So even though some research was strengthened in the universities as compared to early years, but still it was not enough. Because as I said, the aim of the research, even at this period, was not creation of knowledge. It was application of knowledge. It was to create engineers who can help the industry, establish the industry, run the industry, which will contribute to the economic development of the country. So research was started with the aim of economic development of the country. So mainly it was priority was engineering, applied sciences, pharmaceutical sciences, medical sciences, nuclear sciences, later on space sciences, biological sciences, concentrating on the application side. That is why when we ask the question, why our universities are not in top 200 of the world, why Indian researchers don't get Nobel Prize or other international prize, why don't we compete with other nations in getting various prestigious prizes? Of course, you have heard of Nobel Prizes, but there are other prizes at international level which Indians don't get. I hope you are clear why we don't get those prizes, because that is not our aim. Our aim is different. Our aim was different. Now, in the last 10 years, we are making a lot of hue and cry to come in the first 50 or first 100 or first 200, or why questions are being asked why we are not getting these Nobel Prizes. Others, no, because we are not aimed for. Our higher education system is not aimed for. In the beginning, in the first 20 years of independence, main aim was expansion so that everybody can get access to higher education. Then the emphasis was on those subjects which will help you economically for economic developments, setting up industries. Also, setting up industries don't bring you these prices, because those prices are meant for creating knowledge. And our emphasis was application knowledge, application of knowledge, application of existing knowledge, which has been created by others. These prizes are given not for second-hand work, not for applying the knowledge which is already exists, which is created by others. But you see, after the Pokhran nuclear explosion, when a lot of restrictions were put on India, with the money, you can't buy things because there are sanctions, or you can't buy modern things which is required for your industry because the sellers don't want to sell it to you for whatever reasons. I'm not going into that. Then we realized that I think we have to create knowledge ourselves. We have to create knowledge which can create new applications, new instruments, new things which will help economic development. Relying on the knowledge which is already created by others. Buying knowledge is also not possible because you can buy only when somebody is willing to sell. But if somebody is not willing to sell, how do you buy? How do you buy it? That we have realized in our space program. Our space program is mostly independent. Mostly independent. The cryogenic things which we have created are done by us. Similarly, in nuclear energy. Nuclear energy also we are completely independent. What we are doing ourselves because of the sanctions which were imposed in 1970s. So that's why after 1970s, I think more emphasis was given on research, which was done mainly in the campuses which were devoted completely to research. Of course, as I said, some effort was money-wise, infrastructure-wise, also given to the universities. But there was some unfortunate development. Unfortunate development was that there were more facilities for research in these institutions. Which institutions? The institutions run by the Council of Scientific Industrial Research, Department of Scientific Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, ISRO, Atomic Energy. There's so much money involved. There was so much time, full-time research, that many active researchers from the universities shifted to these institutions. So the universities, or colleges, whatever little research was being done, the universities and colleges, that also got reduced. So in 50s and 60s, the universities were in very, very poor shape. First, there was no much money or incentives to do the research, despite some people who were actively doing research, doing good research, left the university to join these CSIR, DST, DBT institutions because they could find more time to do research, they can find more money to do research, they could find more infrastructure facilities to do research. So as a result, the research in the university system, research in the college system really got diminished. So this relation between teaching and research become minimal, even though the government was supporting substantially the research in various subjects. Probably you already know, I don't have to give you statistics, that even with that research, including the support in the universities as well as support in the research institutions, purely research institutions, was nowhere comparable to what other countries were spending. Other countries means countries like United States or European countries or Japan or even China at that time. Of course, China is far ahead now in spending money on research or on especially in sciences. In fact, in all subjects, uh, they are far ahead in manpower, in money, in output, and in impact, international impact. In all parameters, China and US are far ahead of us uh, in all disciplines, science, social sciences, humanities, so on and so forth. So that is the status. So that is the historical status of our institutions, how the research has developed, what has been the emphasis of research in the universities and colleges, how it compares with the research in the purely research institutions, how does it compare with the international research. As a result of greater expansion in the university and college system, mainly because of the expansion in the population. Now we have institutions, universities and colleges where there is good research in some of the institutions, there's little research in some of the institutions, and there are no research in many of the institutions, unfortunately. Why is that? You are more familiar with the situation right now, the last 10 years, because now we have three types of institutions in our country. By institutions, I mean universities and colleges. We have universities and colleges supported by the government, either by central government or by state government. I put them together. Where there is considerable amount of research being done. Obviously, it is more in central universities. It is less in state universities. In all parameters of research, whether it is in infrastructure development or it is financial development, financial resources, or in academic resources, or in student resources, in all parameters, central universities are richer than the state universities. Then there are private universities, or there are deemed universities, where I think research component is very poor. Because the main aim and objective of private universities, no matter how much propaganda they make, is not creation of knowledge. It's not even dissemination of knowledge. With some exceptions, I think most of them are interested in earning money. Because you see, the infrastructure is so good there. Better than many central universities. Infrastructure is so good. And the academic resources are so poor. I mean, you can compare, the quality of infrastructure and the quality of faculty. The working conditions of the faculty are very, very bad in private institutions. I do not want to go into details. Many of you might have personal or direct or indirect experience of working in private institutions. What are working hours? What are the facilities? What are the other incentives for doing research in the private institutions? So the situation is not very happy because I think more than 85% of the higher education in India depends on the state universities, state government colleges, private colleges, deemed universities, and deemed colleges. I think only around 15% of higher education is in the hands of central government, where resources could be considered satisfactorily. Even though I think they are quite bad in the institutions or in the universities or in the IITs or in the medical college which have opened in the last 5 years. or last even 10 years. Even in the central government institutions, things are very, very poor. In fact, only last week, the UP government uh, had in UP, the Indian Medical Council or National Medical Council, which is called now, has not permitted or not given recognition to 13 medical colleges. You know, UP government has opened a lot of medical colleges in the recent years in UP with the aim to open one medical college in every state. That makes 75 medical colleges in the due course of time. But they have not been recognized by the National Medical Council, at least 13 of them. Why? Because of the lack of faculty. So the resources, academic resources are very, very much lacking, even the state institutions. What about talk about the private universities? I have visited some private universities in the NAC committee, and I have seen myself that I mean their infrastructure is better than central universities. But what about the faculty? They have recruited faculty which is either part-time or which is incompetent or which is not up to the mark. But they are giving degrees and they are giving teaching. So the research is suffering. So for research and teaching, for teaching you don't need much resources. But for research you need enough resources in the infrastructure as well as financial to be viable in research, to do research of international quality and compete with scientists at international level, compete with the scientists working in United States and Europe or even China or Japan. You need infrastructure facilities other than the quality of faculty, which is lacking even in the central institutions. What to talk of private and institutions which are called deemed universities and colleges. But by and large, I am concentrating mainly on the universities and colleges. That uh, some research is being done in the universities, which is of international standards. And in the new national education policy, NAP 2020, there are plans, what we call National Research Foundation, Ansandhan National Research Foundation, ANRF, where they have committed 50,000 crore rupees in the next 5 years for the research. So obviously research will be boosted. But unfortunately, NAP 2020, it has been 4 years. And I don't think any substantial money has been estimated from that 50,000 crores. 5 years means 10,000 crores per year. So out of 10,000 crore per year, I think not much. In fact, to my knowledge, nothing has been spent in the last four years. But obviously, the last 4 out of 3 years of the last 4 years, we have been in the COVID era. So hopefully, in the next 5 years, the research will get a boost. So as I said, in universities, not in colleges, the university, there is some substantial research, especially in natural sciences and humanities and social sciences. Some research is being done, even though the research in engineering institutions and in medical institutions still minimal. In fact, the total research output is minimal. Talk of quality research, which could be comparable to the international standards, I think that is even worse. But in areas like sciences, pure sciences, humanities and social sciences, the Indian universities are not far behind. They have made a good contribution. They are competing with the international institutions. Now let me come to the second part of my presentation. That is why research and teaching should be related. As I said that most of the research, not most of the research, but substantial research is being done in the universities and colleges. I will not comment on quality. but quantity-wise, a lot of research is being done in the universities and colleges. And as I said, some research and a lot of good research is being done in institutions like IITs and ICERs. I would like to comment here because IITs were basically engineering institutions, but now other disciplines are being opened in IITs because of our national education policy. But institutions like ICER, Indian Institution for Science Education and Research, they were opened with the double aim of strengthening teaching and research both. So those were really are the ideal institutions which should have been promoted right from the beginning. And ICERs are doing very well in both areas, in teaching and research both. But unfortunately, there are only right now five or six of them. We should open more ICER type institutions. As I said in the beginning, that there are universities and colleges, there's more teaching, very little research. There are CSIR, DST, DBT, ISRO, DAE institutions where there's 90% research, 10% teaching. But ICERs are the ideal institutions, and now IITs, because they are expanding from engineering to sciences. Sciences were there, but very, very little. But now there are more. So in IITs, they are expanding into from engineering, they're expanding into sciences, humanities, and social sciences, management. All these areas are being opened in IITs. So IITs and ICERs are the ideal institutions where teaching and research both will flourish and probably will flourish to the international standards. So I have big hope from those institutions, unless the universities and colleges are supported in big way, and it should be, because universities and colleges have very good infrastructure. In fact, some of them had very good infrastructure for last 100 years, but they have decayed. They have been due to the lack of support, and it's time that they are supported, because they already have a lot of things there, and only you have to get good faculty and good recruitment so that they can come up to the mark and compete with international standards. So instead of ICER, IITs, these older universities and colleges should be supported financially by respective state governments and central government, where they are open. Now I'll come to the second part of that. Why do we expect that research and teaching should be interconnected? You see, I have been in this business of teaching and research for more than 50 years. So obviously, I think it is natural. It is very natural that research and teaching should be connected, and not that they should be connected, but they should connection should be pleasant one, or to use the scientific term, or to use mathematical or statistical term. There should be a correlation between teaching and research, and this correlation should be positive and large. I hope some of you who understand mathematics and statistics understand the meaning of what I am saying, and what do we understand by correlation, positive correlation and large correlation. But you don't have to be really expert to comprehend the meaning of that. Correlation between two parameters or two subjects is positive. Obviously, it is good, and if it is large, it means the connectivity is very close. So why should there should be a correlation between teaching and research? You see, teaching is a academic activity, is an intellectual activity. As I said, teaching really concerns with learning whatever exists, or understanding the knowledge which is already existing, created by others. Not only understanding the knowledge which already exists, but also disseminating this knowledge to others. So it needs development of two facilities of human mind. First one, you should be able to comprehend what you read. You should be able to understand, comprehend the knowledge which has been created by others. And the other ability is, once you have understood it, once you have comprehended it, you should be able to communicate it to others who don't know anything, who start from the beginning. You should be able to explain it to others who don't know as much as you know. That is what we call teaching. Teaching is not giving just a lecture. Teaching is really transfer this knowledge which is in your brain to the somebody who is not as bright as you are. It could be a younger fellow who is just starting, or it could be a fellow of your own standards, but his mental abilities are not as sharp as you are. So you should have this ability to transfer knowledge, to communicate. It's not just a language problem. It's more than a language problem. By communication, we normally mean that you have give good lectures, you could give good comprehension, good writing. No, it's more than that. It is not just the communication as far as language is concerned. It is communication of the ideas. It is communication of the concepts, which could be very simple, but which could be very complicated, which could involve mathematical concepts, which could involve concepts which are difficult to communicate, because many times we understand something very well ourselves, but we find it very difficult to communicate to others. To give an example, I work in a very advanced subject of physics. But when my children ask me, what are you doing? I find it very difficult to communicate to them what I'm really doing, because, there's so much gap between my knowledge and their knowledge, because they are not in physics, they are not in mathematics, and some other subjects. So you need this ability to communicate. For me, it is easier to communicate with the people who have some knowledge of physics. But I can't find it very difficult to communicate what I know with people who do not know physics. But there are people who can do that also, obviously, who are better teacher than me, who can communicate the very complicated ideas in either in physics or chemistry or mathematics to people of management or people of other subjects. So this ability you should have in mind. So that is what teaching is about. The research is about creating the knowledge. So it is an extra dimension. First, you should be able to comprehend what knowledge is existing. Second stage is that you should be able to communicate this knowledge to people who know less than you. And third dimension is the higher dimension, that is to create the knowledge which does not exist. So obviously all three aspects are part of intellectual activity. So obviously there should be a relation between them. So that's why I strongly feel that there should be a relation between teaching and research, and that relation should be positive. That's my feeling. I think many of you will agree that there should be a relation, but that relation should be positive. You may not agree to that. The relation could also be negative. But as I said, my feeling, my personal experience is that that relationship should be positive. Obviously, there is it's very difficult to answer this question whether the relationship is positive or not. But I will give you some arguments. In both cases, for and against. Why should it be positive? As I said, the relationship should be positive because all these activities of teaching and research are part of the intellectual activity of human mind. So the relationship should be positive. It should be positive because you see, when you go in the teaching class, if you are active in research, you know, and it is true not only for science, but it's true also for humanities and social sciences. You know what are the most important topics in your subject. What are the topics which are important for human progress? What are the topics which are important for development of society? Of course, whatever subject you are, that might be relevant to some aspects of social development, advancement of knowledge, or economic development. Definitely, most of the subjects are applicable to the development of the society in some form or the other, whether be it economics, or be it arts, or be it science subjects, be it pharmaceutical subjects, or whatever, natural sciences. They will contribute. They have some application to certain segment of social development. In many cases, it may be direct, but in some cases, it may also have indirect connection with the social development. So, in a subject, in a subject, there are so many topics. Most of them may not be equally important for the development of society. By development of society, I mean everything: scientific development, economic development, social development, financial development, academic development. I'm taking into consideration all the aspects of the development of society. So, whatever subject you are in, some topics of those subjects will be more relevant to the development of society. Some of them will not be that relevant for the development of society. And some subjects will not be relevant at all because they will be just, as I said, you need the basic knowledge, and that subjects provide the basic knowledge. So every subject has these three components. So if you are active in research in your subject, then you will know what topics are more important for the societal development. So you will be able to focus more on your teaching. Of course, there is a syllabus, and syllabus is very general. Every university has a syllabus for certain courses, and that courses has many topics. And you might be expert in some topic which you are given for teaching. So once you teach certain paper in a subject, certain topics in certain paper, then you know what is its relevance to the society, and that is how you can decide how much emphasis should you put on that. So if you are active in research, then you know what topics should be emphasized more, what topics should be emphasized less, and what topic should be just stated in the class. Obviously, you can argue that most of the emphasis of the students is on getting marks, getting good marks. They are not really concerned about your relevance of the societal development. That is right. That's right from the point of view of the students. But I'm talking from the point of view of the teachers. Teachers who teach in the class, the teachers who design the syllabus, teachers who set the papers. It is teachers' responsibility to design the syllabus emphasizing the topics which are more relevant for societal development. It is responsibility of the teachers to emphasize teaching of those topics which are more relevant. And it is the responsibility of teachers to set papers according to the topics which are more relevant for the societal development. So you see, at the end, it is the responsibility of the teacher to mold priorities of the student. Because if you are doing everything in a graded way, depending upon your emphasis being given to topics which are more important for development of country, development of society, for economic development, then you will be imbibing this in the student also. Even the fact that the students prepare for exams with the aim to score good marks. But if your examination paper is designed in such a way, your syllabus is designed in such a way, your teaching is designed in such a way to emphasize the subjects of from the point of view of the development of society, then it will sink in the students also. So if you are active in research, then you have a better conception of how to prioritize your teaching, how to prioritize your paper setting, and how to make syllabus if you are a senior person involved in making syllabus for your university. And I'm sure some of you, if not today, 5 years later, 10 years later, will be given this responsibility of making the syllabus, changing the syllabus, modifying the syllabus. So that you should keep in mind. So a person research, active in research, has a better comprehension of these things. A person who is active in research, especially, I think his teaching, especially to postgraduate colleges, will be influenced more by advanced subjects. As you can also argue, as I said, the syllabus is made by the university. So you will teach only those topics which are there in the syllabus. Right? But what I'm addressing not only to you, but I am addressing a future you when you are given the responsibility of making syllabus. Have an overall view already that what are the topics which are very important in your subject, or the development of the country, for development of the society, whether be it sciences or be it economics or be it psychology or whatever it is, and that you will emphasize those topics in your subject in the syllabus. So a research would contribute in a positive way to the teaching. This is just one example. Similarly, teaching. If a teacher is active in research, then that also helps his research. I'll give you an example, at least one or two examples. Why? How? Because you see, a researcher also has a group of students working with him. Sometimes, if you are active in research, you may have 10 students working for PhD. Now, MPhil is demolished. Earlier, we had students who were doing MPhil and PhD. So, every professor had a group of 10 students around him. So, he had to manage those 10 students. This is a human problem as well. So, if you're a teacher, you're teaching undergraduate class, which would maybe 40 to 50 students, or if you're teaching a postgraduate class, you have 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 students, then you are a good human manager. You can manage a class. If you manage a class of 40 to 50 students, manage the discipline. Not only that, as a teacher or as a good teacher, you also manage the intellectual level of the students. Let me elaborate on that. Suppose in undergraduate class, and it also applies to a postgraduate class, in an undergraduate class, you have 40 students. Then 40 students, there will be at least 3 or 4 intellectual levels of the students. Some of them will be very good, let's say very bright. Some of them will be moderately bright. Some of them will be average students. Some of them will be not very bright. So there will be at least 4 levels of intellectual capacity of the students. And as a teacher, you have to devise ways to communicate to all of them in duration of 1 hour. If you are giving 1 hour lecture every day or 3 days a week, whatever your timetable is, then you have to devise your lecture in such a way that you could address all the 4 intellectual levels at the same time. Even if you don't know how to do it, if you have taught the course for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you develop that ability. We have developed that, and I'm sure you must have developed that also if you have been in teaching for 4 years. How to communicate a group of students with diverse intellectual abilities. Apart from discipline is something else. Nothing to do with the intellectual capabilities of the teacher or of the student. So if you have developed that ability, then it helps in managing 8 to 10 students who are doing research with you. Because it's the same problem managing at research level, but at a higher level. You boost all the intellectual capabilities of undergraduate students, let's say 5 times. This is what you get when you have 8 to 10 or 4 to 5 research students working with you. Not all of them will be equally bright. Of course, you select students who are very good in the studies. But obviously, in those 5 to 10 students that you have working with you, there are students with a different ability. Some of them are theoretically minded, some of them are mathematically minded, some are good with experimental hands, things like that. So other than the intellectual ability. So you sort of develop the technique to handle these students in your research better if you have experience of teaching undergraduate and postgraduate classes. So that is a good lesson in managing the students intellectually, academically, and also the management wise. So I think the teaching helps in the research. Also, as I said, research helps in the teaching. So there should be a positive connection, positive correlation between them. I think I have hardly 10 minutes left. So I will give you what is the result? Has there been some studies? Has there been some research in the interconnectivity of teaching and research? Obviously, there have been some research, but to my knowledge, not much research work has been done in India. But there has been work in United States, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and countries like that, from which I have data. Of course, the details of data is not relevant here because we are not going to go do research into that. So I will just give you the result in very general terms. Well, there was done first thing. Why was this done? In European countries and US countries, United States, it was done because of the main purpose was that if they thought that if they find a positive correlation between them, which means if research leads to good teaching, then in the United States and Europe, the research funding is primarily or dominantly done by the private industry, not by government. Government does support, but 70% of the money comes from the private industries like Microsoft, IBM, or Google, or Oracle these days, In old days, General Electric, IBM, and these Boeing, all these big industries, they are the ones which support the research, 70 to 75%. And the same is true in Europe and in Japan. Of course, India, it is other way around. Now, in the national education policy, they plan, they expect, not expect, they plan that 70% of the funding, this 50,000 crores I am telling you about the NRF, they expect the 70% of this 50,000 will come from the industry. Well, I will not go into detail of how badly planned is this, maybe in some other lecture. But here, the truth is that in these countries, 70% of the funding comes from the industry. So, industry is a very important aspect of support of the research. So, government thought that if research is going to make better teachers, then they will pressurize the industry to be very generous in supporting the research in the universities, because they said that it will not only benefit the industries which are paying money for doing research, but as a bonus, this research will give them better teachers, which will help the government to plan the higher education in the country, especially in the United States. So that was the reason the United States and European countries started this project of doing the research for the interconnectivity of research and teaching, hoping that a positive connection will initiate more research funding in the universities and colleges, so that the teaching could be improved in the university. That was the aim. But you can see that is a very difficult question to answer. And that was reflected in the result also. Because various researchers done give all the results. Some researchers said that this correlation is positive and it is large. Some researchers said there is no correlation. There is no correlation whether a person who is active in research is a good teacher or a good teacher is a good researcher. There is no correlation. And in fact, some results also said that there is a negative correlation, that good researchers are not good teachers, or good teachers are not. So all three type of results were available in the researches which were done. That you expect. And why do you expect that? As I said, personally, I expect that this correlation should be positive and it should be large. But when actual research was done, it was found that all three results came out, which means you cannot answer this question in a conclusive way. After the research came, you really know why it is not possible to answer this question in a conclusive way. So in the last 5 minutes, I will tell you why it is not possible to answer this question in a very conclusive way, or in other words, why it is very difficult to answer this question. First, I spent more time on this. This is more important. But again, since you are already teachers, most of you I expect to also do research. So I don't have to explain, you will understand what I am saying, even though I am not presenting any data. First, when you compare two things, especially in science or mathematics or in any subject, especially in statistics, when you have the correlations, when you're looking for the correlation between two objects, you will try to first set up the parameters. So what is the parameters for which define a good teaching? And then you would like to know what are the parameters you define a good research. So once you define the parameters, then you score teaching on those parameters, good teaching on those parameters, good research on those parameters, and then you compare the gradings. And then you calculate the correlation, mathematical formulas to calculate that correlation. But first you have to parameterize them, you have to quantize them, you have to give a number, and then you apply the formula to calculate the correlation. And then you see whether it is a positive or negative or zero. So it is difficult because we don't know what are the parameters which define a good teaching. Right? Is the result of your class, the final result of your class which you are teaching, is a parameter? If the result of your class is good, are you a good teacher? It is not very conclusive. Because a bad teacher, whatever the criterion of bad and good is, a bad teacher can also give very good results using methods which have nothing to do with teaching. Right? Your class could be, for example, your question paper could be very easy. Marking could be very lenient. So even if you are not a good teacher, you can set a very, very easy paper, be very lenient in marking. All the students will have good marks, they will pass, they will be very happy. And it has nothing, it does not reflect on your teaching. Is maintaining good discipline in your class a sign of good teaching? Again, you will think so. But there are many ways other than teaching to maintain good discipline in a class. Some teachers very smart, they can manage good, they can have a very good disciplined class without teaching anything. So there are many ways to do that. So I mean this, that's not well-defined criterion where you can give marks out of 10 for a good teacher. And that is the reason, you know, in your interviews, teaching is not a parameter for your appointment or your promotion, because there are no parameters to determine a good teacher. Because every vice chancellor or every recruiting agency wants to recruit very good teachers. But what is the criterion to be a good teacher? There is no criterion. So obviously they go on the research. So research has at least some parameters where you can judge, where your research can be judged. But again, judgment of good research and bad research is also not very clear. Like, is the number of papers is the indication of a good research? To publish more papers, are you a good teacher? I'm not sure. Because it also depends upon quality of publication. Somebody can have very large number of papers, but quality is very poor. So no matter how many papers you publish, I mean, your credibility is still doubted because the quality of the publication is very poor. Not only that, now these days in sciences, whether biological sciences or physical sciences or chemical, whatever sciences, engineering sciences, there are co-authors which run in hundreds and thousands. You know, of course, in some disciplines there is only one author or two authors or three authors or four or five. But there are now international and national collaborations. 3 universities collaborate on a project. The paper is written by 100 people together. So what is your contribution? So if you even publish 200 papers and each paper has 1,000 co-authors, what is your contribution? Maybe your contribution is nothing. It is a very real situation. It's a very real situation in international projects, at least in my subject. In my subject, there are papers written by 1,000 authors at the same time. And one author who is applied for a post even doesn't know what papers he has published, because he is one of those 1,000 authors. Because it is a project, big project, international project running in Switzerland, which he goes for 3-4 days in a year in the laboratory, and he does a part of it. His name is included in the paper. So the number of papers could be very large, but what is the contribution of a particular person in that paper? Unless a paper is written by a single author. Now, when it comes to the quality, of course, who decides the quality? That is also very controversial. Because you already know, you are working in colleges, the university, that UGC has a list of journals where if you publish in those journals, that publication will be counted, which means there are many fake journals in circulation, and a lot of people publish in those journals. I have sat on various search committees for appointment of assistant professors and lecturers in older days, where the number and list of publication is very large. Papers are published in journals where even the experts in the field have never heard of. Then there are paid journals, you pay money and then they publish. So you see, the number of papers is not a criteria. Number of awards, national or international awards you get. I will not like to comment on that, but you know that awards are given. Many other criteria which go into the picture when awards are given by government agencies or by NGOs or by private organizations. So quality of research is not the only criteria. There are many other criteria on which the awards are given. So again, of course, in sciences, suppose you get a Bhatnagar award, obviously you are a very good researcher. But that is not true for all other awards. So getting an award is not also a good, is not a foolproof parameter for judging the research. So when the parameters for good teaching are not well defined, when parameters of a good research is not defined, then how you compare them? That's the difficulty. That's the difficulty for doing research in the interconnectivity of teaching and research. The quantization is not possible. Therefore, giving a number or giving a definite answer to this question is not possible. But certain trends are very clear. Certain trends are very clear, like the correlation in postgraduate teaching. But let me first summarize this way, that answer to this question in general is not possible. But specific answers should be possible because it depends upon many parameters. For example, this answer to this question of interconnectivity between teaching and research depends upon what subject you are talking about, because this correlation could be different in sciences, could be different in humanities, in social sciences, could be different in medical sciences, could be different in engineering sciences. So first we have to specify that you are asking this question of interconnectivity in teacher research in which subject, in which topic. Then probably you can give some answer. Similarly, it also depends upon the class, whether you're talking about undergraduates, or you're talking about the postgraduates, or you're talking about the research students. So once you specify that you are asking the question about teaching and connection between teaching and research in undergraduate classes, or in postgraduate classes, or in research classes, then it is easy to answer. Again, it depends upon the type of institutions. You are talking about private institutions, or government institutions, or state government institutions, or central government. Because the working conditions are different, incentives are different, financial or academic incentives are different. So it depends upon what type of institutions there are. So please don't ask general question about the interconnectivity of teaching and research. Ask very specific questions. That what is the interconnectivity? How is the interconnectivity between teaching and research? Let's say for undergraduate classes in social sciences, in central government institutions. So if you specify a question like this, then probably you can give this answer. To give you an example, that the interconnectivity in teaching and research in the postgraduate classes, in the science subjects, is positive and high, large. That is supported by the actual statistical research conducted in various institutions. There is, for example, one example. Another example, the interconnectivity between teacher and research in undergraduate classes, in social sciences is positive, but very small. It's not large. Again, another difficulty is that what are the major stakeholders? These are the students. So this sort of research is done based on statistical surveys, on questionnaires. So if you give questionnaires to undergraduate students in your class, if somebody does it, research to explore the interconnectivity between teaching and research, and then he makes a questionnaire to the undergraduate students. It was found that undergraduate students have no idea about the research activities of the teachers. That is, the teachers goes to the class, undergraduate class, especially in social sciences and humanities. He takes his class for around 1 hour and goes away. There is no interaction between teachers of undergraduate classes in social sciences and humanities with the students. So students have no idea how active this teacher is in the research. So once they have no idea how active is the teacher in the research, how will they answer the question regarding the interconnectivity of teacher research? So these are the differences. So my recommendation is, whether you are teaching undergraduate classes or postgraduate classes, talk about yourself. Talk about yourself, I mean academic activities. What research you are doing, how useful your research is, what publication you are doing, how important those publications are at national level, international level. So engage with the students in undergraduate classes. Obviously, the engagement is more in the postgraduate classes. That is why the result is more positive and definite there. So when you take your class, you engage in your students, talk with them, about yourself, your academic activities, your achievements, so that they appreciate your efforts in teaching as well as in research. If every teacher does that, then probably it will be easier to answer this question of quantitatively answer this question, whether the connection between teaching and research is positive or negative, or there is no connection. So with this, I think I have spent my time. I think I have taken more time, and some people are leaving. So I think I'll stop that, and I'd like to thank you very much for the patience with which you have listened to me for more than an hour and a half. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, if you have any question, I think I'd like to answer that. Okay. Okay, if there are no questions, I think I'll close this session, and thank you again very much.